I think we've got quite a few people now, so I guess we can get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this session and welcome. It's a very exciting topic that we're going to be covering today, and I think it will hit home for quite a lot of businesses. And it is basically how to automate purchase order processing using AI, especially when they come in messy, unstructured formats, which I think has already been broached in the chat. So if you've ever had to dig through messy PDFs or messy emails just to make sense of an order, then I think this one's for you. As you can see, my name is Michael. I'm with the product marketing team here at Make. I'll be guiding the conversation today and framing the value you'll be seeing from using Make to realize these efficiency gains. I've been preparing this session with Justin, and it's been really surprising actually to hear just how messy and cumbersome it can be to just process orders. And correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, it seems consistent across industries as well, especially in
Yeah.
B2B. Whether it's a small team, but often with large teams as well, are you seeing that businesses are struggling to manually process orders?
Yeah, but especially often small teams as well, but especially bigger teams that have been around for a while are used to doing the old way. And it's just normal to process orders, on paper. Um, and it just becomes quite a big time suck over time. That it has been working, but there's now better ways.
So just to give everyone a sense of how much this problem has plagued companies, could you give examples of some of the efficiency gains that you've uncovered for your clients?
Yeah, so I've got one particular client that I've got in mind, and so they're of that type, big company, been successful for a long time, sales team between 10 and 20 people. And what they were finding is that they were spending more time processing orders than actually going out and getting new business. And so across their whole team, they were spending about, I think it was about 18,000 hours per year processing orders. That's about 1,500 per month. And so we did some automation for them, and our aim was to save half that time, so 750 hours per month. I think actually it would be much more than half, but anyway, we'll be conservative and we say half. And that's great for big companies who've got lots of people that can save lots of time. If you're a smaller company, what they were doing is they had their salespeople spending 60% of their time processing orders, so only 40% of time actually selling. So if you take 40% of your time selling, and then go up to 100% of your time selling, that's 2.5 times increase in the actual time you get to spend bringing in new customers. So hopefully that would relate to a significant uptick in sales and business growth.
Excellent. That's exactly what the kind of thing we'll be looking at today. Is basically how we can all achieve similar results for ourselves using AI and Make, because those are some pretty staggering numbers. So yeah, I'm excited to see how the session takes shape. So before we go into the for the agenda today, there's a few key actionable items that I think you'll take away from the session. The first being you'll learn how to create good prompts. You'll learn why prompting your AI is like giving instructions to a very smart intern, and how to make those as clear as possible to achieve your goals. Second, you'll learn how to increase the accuracy of what AI returns to you. Basically, how can you ensure that the outputs that the AI gives you don't need your constant overview, basically. But if there are things that are especially business critical, that you can add an element, a human in the loop review element as a backup, or you can trigger further automations to make sure that everything stays on track. And then finally, we will end throughout the session. We'll brief you on fuzzy matching, what it is, and why it's so important, especially for when you're dealing with messy, unstructured formats. So the agenda today is pretty straightforward. We'll do some quick introductions. We'll introduce Make, and then our guest for today, Justin, will introduce himself as well. And then we'll get into the meat of the session, how Justin leveraged Make and AI to optimize order processing for a small team struggling to manage high order volume. Then Justin will take us through a demo of how he's used Make and AI to solve these problems, to save this company time and help them gain more efficiency. And then we'll have time at the end for Q&As. And please, again, feel free to send your Q&As in the Q&A box. And we'll try and get to them at the end in as timely a manner as possible. Any and all questions are welcome, so please don't be shy. And we will also have potentially a freebie at the end, so stay tuned to find out more. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with Make, but for anyone who's new, I'll just give you a quick overview. So Make is essentially an integration and automation no-code platform that allows you to combine a huge number of tools, including AI tools, to help you build anything from simple to complex workflows, depending on your needs. So problems in the past that may have previously needed developer support can now be handled by business users. We have a vast and diverse number of active organizations, paying active organizations using Make, and lots of very satisfied customers. So if you're not using Make today, I think there are a lot of reasons to consider getting started. One more reason to on the next slide to consider Make is due to some very exciting recent news. Some of you may have seen that our public beta launch of Make AI agents is now launched. Won't go into too much detail in this session, but essentially what Make AI agents allow you to do is to build your own intelligent AI agents, customize them according to your business needs. So what you have now is the ability to pair the business agility you're used to with Make now with flexible and scalable AI agents. So obviously very exciting time for us, but if you want to find out more, there's the landing page link right at the bottom. It's at make.com/AI-agents. So go and check that out after the session. So, as I said, I'm joined by our guest for today, Justin Smith-Madsen. Justin is from Work Management Tools, and he's one of our solutions partners. He's worked with loads of companies to build powerful automations, and he'll be showing us the technical side today and how it all comes together. So, Justin, would you mind doing a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So I'm a fractional solutions engineer. Basically, what I do is I partner with companies to build automated solutions, which do the work of 5, 10, 50 people, depending on the size of the opportunity. So basically, I really aim at client margins, improving, having more revenue and less cost. Usually we focus on the less cost, but as you can see, sometimes it'll also flick over into more revenue as well. And generally we can trigger some growth in our clients. We've had clients grow 3 to 5 times their size in the time they've worked with me. So I focus on order processing, which we'll see one version of that today, and also connecting task and project management to accounting. If that sounds like you and you're interested and you'd like to have me build it for you, you can reach out at justin@workmanagement.tools or just the website. There's a contact form on there.
Thank you, Justin. So I'm on to the challenge at hand. I'm going to hand it over to Justin now to show us how the magic happens. So yeah, Justin, over to you.
Yeah, cheers. So this particular company that I was working with, and the general problem here is relational sales, right? You've got a relationship with a client and they just send you emails like, hey, can I please buy 5 of this, right? The other side of order processing is if it comes through a structured form, where it's like an e-commerce site or something. Today, we're talking about more the relational side. And this is across all industries. The particular one I'm thinking of today was a book publisher. So they had like 20,000 products in their catalog. As you can see here, they had about 10,000 business customers. So those were small bookshops. They would all send in their own orders with no standardization. Some were just like written into emails, just the actual like text in the email. Some were PDFs. Each PDF was, of course, laid out differently because they have different accounting software, contained different information. And so basically the salespeople were spending about 60% of their time processing these orders instead of getting new orders. And of course, because we're sending out products, we need to make sure we end up with near 100% accuracy. Right? The manual version before we implemented anything wasn't 100% accurate, so they didn't totally care about that, but it still needed to be pretty close. So the way we went about doing that, and this is a little overview of the automation we're going to look at today. First, the salespeople would forward the emails into the automation. Right? It's not the only way of doing it. You could connect it up to anything where those orders are currently living, but for them it was most useful to do it via email. The next thing was the AI reads the email contents up here and also any attachments down here. Then we do some fuzzy matching to make sure that what was sent in actually matches our catalog. Right? Sometimes people type things quickly, or if they're not using a very formal software, they might just write the wrong thing in, right? So we need to actually match that to our catalog and make sure what they're ordering is something we actually sell. And then finally, we'll enter our orders into our order management system. This particular client was using Salesforce. Today I'll demo ClickUp. It's just a little bit simpler for the webinar. We also have a second process, which is the customer follow-up. So here what we're doing is if the order is missing required information, right, usually that's someone's time to email them back and go back and forth on email to try and get all the information. We're going to take the first step out of that and totally automate it. And this can be made really nice for the customer. So what we do is we automatically email the customer with a pre-filled order form, right, if they're missing information. And the pre-filled part's really important because it means the client has very little to enter. Right? That form already has all the information from the actual order on it. Then they can add the extra information, submit it, and we have another automation take that information and update our order management platform. So the results from this particular company have been, of course, their 60% of time that their salespeople were using has been mostly saved. The 9,000 hours per year was taking it down to about 30% of salespeople time. I think we actually can take it much lower than that, closer to 5 and 10%, but being conservative, we'll say 30%. So the salespeople should be able to spend 2.5 times more on selling. That was if we're closer to the 5%. And the especially problematic orders are still processed manually. Right? That's why we're leaving a little bit of human time in there. So anything that's going to cause problems and there's a risk of the AI not being totally accurate, we still want humans to process that. So we're going to separate the problematic orders out by using an AI review so that we don't have to review the ones that AI does process closely. Like we can trust those ones because it's doing the easy ones. Hard ones still go through humans.
Justin, I think that's a really important point to like highlight. Obviously, apart from the staggering numbers, I mean, 9,000 hours for any client would be, be jumping for joy. But the fact that you can still maintain an element of control, so you can
Mm.
have, the human in the loop element for anything that is particularly tricky or niggly that you want to make sure you get right. But also for the routine stuff, you can have the AI look after and basically either way you maintain some control. I think that's really really powerful.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's jump into a demo of it. So we'll jump in here. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the already constructed one today. It's just a little bit faster because this is quite big. I'm going to just keep going. If you have any questions, I can see there's a couple already. Chuck them in that Q&A. I will address them at the end. I won't go through them as I'm going, but I'll try and leave as much time as I possibly can at the end for questions. Okay, so first of all, we have our input. This is from Gmail. It's very straightforward. I'm using the pre-made Gmail module. You could use the Microsoft one or the generic, any other provider one, whatever works for you. I'm querying it just because I have several email addresses on this account, but it's just pulling in emails. The next big thing we're doing is, of course, the AI processing. But because we're doing that in several places, what I don't want to do is have separate prompts in each of these places. Because as I fine tune it over time, I'm going to be making a lot of changes, and I don't want to have to go through and change it in multiple places. Like that is just a recipe for me to forget something and end up causing more and more problems down the road. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set all the prompts up front here so that they are reused in the different AI modules. Right, so you can see here all the prompts. And we've got the generic ones, and then some ones for reviewer, and then some ones for consolidator. And we'll talk about what that's for later. Okay, but I will talk through what is a good prompt, right? That was a lot of text you just saw. Like, how do you come up with all of this? So if we jump back to our slides here, I'll go through and show you So we have a best practice extraction prompt framework, and this is different from a generation prompt. Right? You might be quite familiar with generative prompts. You usually want to keep them quite short and basically let the AI do what it wants to do. With extraction, it's a whole different thing. Because we want to have a very structured output, we want to give it more instructions, right? So this is why it's a little bit more like an intern, where the quality of your instructions is very, very important for how controlled the output actually is. So the prompts that we'll give it, or the sections of the prompt, will be what role it should take, what information it needs to look at, the steps it should take, the specifications, like the really nitty-gritty, the output format it needs to do, and then any other notes, right? And I haven't manipulated this into spelling out anything fancy, but you can remember Risu if you want. So what that looks like is role is you are a, act as a, your job is to, right? You're probably reasonably familiar with this. I don't know for sure, but my guess is this filters out what of its training data it will use. So for example, our prompt will be, you're an advanced AI system specializing in extracting information from purchase orders, right? It's a bit weird that I'm telling it that it's an advanced AI system. Like, that's not anything different from what it actually is. The reason I left that in is just because it doesn't actually matter exactly what you say. Right? It's not that sensitive as long as you get the general idea across. Next one is information. Now, again, my sense is that we want to give it the information as early as possible so that it can interpret the rest of our instructions whilst having the information. So it kind of has the most possible time to think about it. So our example is the email subject line is subject, the body and the attachments containing the purchase order you need to analyze are body attachments, right? This is where we actually put the information in Make, map it in. Then we have steps, and this is just the overview of what it should do, right? So our example is, please follow these steps to extract the format and the information, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So analyze the email content provided, detail your analysis. The reason I put this in is actually to slow it down. It'll cost more tokens, but it'll spend more time thinking if it kind of has to do the task twice. It does it once as an analysis, and then it has an actual final output. If you're using a slow thinking model, you wouldn't do this. If you're using a faster, cheaper model, this can be a nice way to just slow it down a little bit, get a slightly better, more accurate result. Then extract the data for each order per the specifications below, output the order using the below format. And I always say, do not include any explanation or anything else outside of the XML or JSON, depending on what you're using. The reason for that is that if it has text outside of the code, then it's just more steps. It's annoying to get that back into Make in a way that it can actually be used. We really just want to have just the actual code back. And the reason we'd use a code like XML or JSON rather than text is it makes it easier for Make to interpret it in a structured and reliable way. So it's the same every single time. Okay, and then we have our specifications. Specifications is perhaps the most important one, and it's the one you'll spend the most time fine-tuning. So this is all about what to extract, how to identify it, what to ignore, what to do if multiple are found, what format it should be in, your desired output. Examples are good just to kind of help it along, or anything else. So we only want to give it as many of these as is needed to get accurate outputs. You don't have to do all of these for every single field. And you usually start with as few as possible, and then you add extra as it kind of doesn't output what you expect. Right, so there's a lot of fine tuning here. So a couple of really good examples. For example, ordering company, identify the company placing the order. Right, so that's what to extract. This is different from the supplier, which is Acme Publishing. That's what to ignore. If 2 potential ordering companies are found, use the one the order will be shipped to. Right, so what to do if multiple are found. The reason I added these is because these were problems that came up. Extract the date of the order and output it in the format year, month, day, so format, just so that it's always going to be the same no matter who puts the data in and in which format. And then a really tricky one, client account number. Look for an account number which may be labeled account or similar variations. It should be in a numeric format. The account numbers are typically 8 characters long, starting with 3 zeros. However, older ones can be 6 characters and starting with an A or an X. If there is a string of 8 digits in the subject line with no clear label, it is probably the account number, right? So this was one that was really, I had to add a lot of detail to get the AI to actually find this thing, because it was just a string of numbers floating around by itself, usually unlabeled. And that's a very hard thing for AI to identify. It was often mislabeled as the purchase order number, which it was not. So by giving it enough clear instructions, eventually this became reliable and it was getting it right every single time. Okay, it's also worthwhile to extract any information, even if it's partial. We can match partial information. So this is common in the case of product names and also things like account numbers or anything that we have the information elsewhere. So we have product names in our product catalog. We have customer names in our CRM. Right? If we can extract the partial information, then we can fuzzy match it up to having the full information. Also, I often extract things which I don't want. It's a little strange, but if you tell AI all the possible categories, it will be better at assigning the information to the right category and less likely to put the wrong information in a category you do want, right? So I'll say a little bit more about that now, because the next one is output format. So this is the example. This is an XML example. This is all the fields that we want to output, including our analysis and extraction one up the top here. This is XML. If you're using Claude, you'd probably use this. If you're using OpenAI, you'd use JSON instead. If you don't know how to write XML or JSON, don't worry about it. The first time, just give the prompt of like output XML or output JSON, and then copy and paste what it puts out and put that back into the prompt, right? It's often a good idea to let it choose these keys, like ordering company. Let it choose the ones that it thinks is most appropriate, because that's the ones that it'll most easily use again in the future, right? It's kind of good to go with the flow a bit rather than trying to fight against it too much. So I would include keys here, which I actually don't care about. These ones I think I all care about, but it can be worthwhile to include ones I don't care about so that the information gets put in there and doesn't accidentally end up in the reference, for example, if I don't want it there. Okay, and then lastly, other notes. This one's just extra things, right? Things that we tack on the end to help tweak it and fine tune it. So for example, look through the whole email chain. Parts of the order might be provided in different messages. Check if they have changed their mind on any, and if not, add all of these together, right? I added that because the AI was tending to look at only the last email in the chain and not actually go up the email chain. So by putting that in, I was able to change the behavior and get the output I wanted. Okay, so that is the prompt, and you'll see that in here. We've got role, steps, instructions, extraction specifications, XML format, etc. I'm not going to read through all that. That would take forever. At the end of the webinar today, if you want to get access to the scenario, that's an option. So you'll get all of that. Okay, then the first thing we're going to do is we're going to analyze the text in the email body. So we've got a prompt module here, and we're just going to map in role, steps, instructions, extraction specifications, all of that. And we're going to put in the HTML content as the actual information. Other notes, I don't tend to save them in the multiple variables module because they tend to be specific to each module. So my other notes are here. That's the one we saw on the slide. I've also got some problem solving here. So if there's a problem and there's no order in the email body, still output it anyway. Right? I want it to process it regardless. And then there's the format there again. Cool. So that's pretty good. And what we'll generally find with automation, with AI, sorry, there we go, is that it will get to about 80 to 95% accuracy off the bat, right? And that's incredible. That's a lot of accuracy for very little work. But sometimes we want more than that, right? We want to try and get as close as we can to 100%. 100% is a little bit of an unattainable goal. No, that's not true. Depends on your use case, right? This is a very messy use case. There'll always be some insane purchase order that has some exception, but we want to get as close as we can to 100%. And there's a couple of ways we can really boost our accuracy beyond just relying on AI itself. So first of all, we're going to have AI review other AI, right? So a second look, see if we can catch anything else. Then we're going to kick out to a human in certain cases. So first of all, when the PDF is too hard to process, it's poorly scanned, it's handwritten, things like that. Or when the AI reviewer has low confidence, right? Something went wrong and it didn't think it was very good. Maybe it fixed it, but we're still suspicious, so we're going to do that one manually. Okay, so what that looks like is a second AI module called review, and it's very simple. We say, here's the extracted data from the previous module. Here's the original. And then we have our system prompt, which is all of our reviewer prompts. And then the original extraction specifications again. If we have a look at our reviewer prompts, like they're kind of what you expect, honestly. So you're an advanced AI system specialized in ensuring 100% accuracy. Your task is to analyze the extracted details against the original and ensure that nothing is incorrect. And then also output a number between 0 and 100, rating the quality of the data extraction. Okay? And then instructions, here's how to go through each thing. Here's the specifications. Here's the output format. So we've got extraction quality rating there, corrections with each of the items. Within the items, we've got information type, what was provided, what should have been provided, explanation. An interesting note is I often add explanation tags. I don't want an explanation, to be honest. I just want the information. But I found that if you give AI the space to explain itself, it's less likely to shove that explanation into the fields that actually matter. I don't know why, but it really likes explaining itself. So if I can put it in a certain place, it doesn't get mixed in with the other data. So that's that. So now I've got the extracted data and a bunch of corrections. But I kind of want them all together in one final output. And so that's why we have a consolidate. So it's kind of straightforward here. Extracted data, corrections. And then our consolidated role and steps just says, hey, put those two together, right? So it's down the bottom here. You're a data cleaner tasked with merging edits and extracted data and ensuring it's in the correct XML format. Right. So let's run this actually so we can get a sense of what it looks like. I sent in a few purchase orders earlier. Okay, so emails run, got an email there, got all of our prompts and our extracted data. So it's immediately identifying that there's nothing much here in the body. Our reviewer totally agrees, 100% extraction quality. And so we have our consolidate outputs the final thing, which is basically empty. There is nothing at all in there. And that's correct. This particular email I sent through had an attachment, and the entire email body was the word attached. So then we're going to parse our output and review, and that's just to take it from this XML format is actually just text and get it into our proper, like what you're familiar with seeing in Make with the different arrays and collections. Particularly the review one is just to get this one number. All we want is that number there because we're going to do some things with that. In our final module, we're going to set multiple variables. We've got all the extracted data there. So if it exists, then we're going to output it and just flatten it so it's nice and clean. We're going to take the text from the extraction as well and just put that in a body output tag, and I'll show you why in a second. Variable, sorry. And then we've got our kickout. And our kickout is if the quality rating is below 61, then say true, otherwise say false. And the reason we do that is on our third route here, we're going to get all those variables, or at least these two. And if kickout is true, instead of taking our normal route, we're going to take a different route. On this different route, we're going to create an error record. And it's going to look like manual processing needed for this particular email. There's the email content. And then we'll iterate through the attachments and upload them as well. So a human comes in here, has all the information in one place, and can manually process this order. So that's the first half of our kickout process. We also have a second route here. If no data is extracted, right, it's the length is equal to 0 or it doesn't exist, then we'll do the same thing. We'll create an error record and upload all the information so it's ready for manual processing. Okay, so that's our first part of our kickout process. Now, the second thing we're going to do is process any attachments, the PDFs here. This is fairly similar, right? You can see these 5 modules are basically the same as these 5, but there's a little bit of extra things going on. So first of all, we're iterating. The reason for that is there could be more than one attachment. So we'll process each attachment individually. We'll check that it's a PDF. In the live version of this, I'd have multiple routes, one for each different file type. But today we're just doing PDFs. Then we have this extra prompt here, and this is a check. And the whole point of this is to identify, is this PDF going to be difficult to process? So our prompt is, you're a phase 1 PDF parser bot. Your sole focus is to determine with 100% accuracy if the given PDF will be able to be parsed well or not by another bot with the same level of capabilities as you. Here's the document, PDF, and then kind of like, here's the steps of like paying attention to. It's the same analysis steps as we've seen before. Like go through it step by step, outline all the things you can find. Here's the extraction specifications, and then finally say true if the PDFs can be parsed well, and false if it can't. Right. I had to put in an extra bit just to tweak it a bit. I said only consider the ease of reading and identifying information. Missing information is okay. Right. It was failing to find information that the customer hadn't put in and assuming that meant it was unparsable, and that's not correct. So we adjusted how it was actually working just by adding that extra line in. Right. And we've told it the format to output in. The thing I care about is this decision right here. So if we have a look at the output, we can see text response, a whole bunch of analysis, and the decision is true. Okay, so we parse that and get it in a little bit nicer format. And then I should really call these true and false rather than yes and no. But so that decision was true. And these are messed up. I just did this in our run through. So it's equal to true or not equal to true. Okay, so it should have gone through this route, but I had that messed up. So if it was not equal to true, then we kick out. If it's equal to true, we keep processing. All right, let's run another one, just so we can actually see that data go through. Now, from memory, I alternated between text ones and PDF ones. So I think this one, yeah, has no attachments. It's just a text one. So if it continues, we use this get multiple variables module, and it only gets one thing, and it's the output of this one. All right, so at the end here, we'll see in just a few seconds, it's going to set the body output variable. There we go. So the body output is the text extraction. We then give that to the automation down here. So this route is using the information extracted from the PDF and also the information extracted from the body, has both of them together, right? Because at some point we need to consolidate it. So these three are exactly the same as what we've seen up here, except that we pass it that body output, right? So it has all the same instructions, plus the PDF, and then also the output from the extraction from the email body. Review, same thing. Here's the email. Here's the body output. Here's the extracted data. System prompts. Consolidate, same thing we've seen before. Extracted data, corrections, system prompts. Okay, we parse the XML. And then I've added an extra cleanup module in here. This is just to get the information in the right order before we aggregate it. So we're going to grab the extraction and then grab that quality rating as well. Then we'll aggregate those two things. So we've now got all the information from all the PDFs into one bundle. And as long as that exists, then we'll set that as the new AI output. So we set it up here once, and then we actually override that AI output, since this one is the combined version of both the email body and the PDF. If any of the PDFs have a kickout value of true, then we mark this as true. All right, so even if they sent through 3 PDFs, if one of them isn't readable, then we'll kick out the whole thing. Right? You could change, you could decide to process some of them. In this particular case, we decided to kick out the whole order. Okay, and all that information is retrieved from the variables on this bottom route. And then as long as we're not kicking out or there's not an error, we continue on. So the output exists and then kick out is not equal to true, then we'll create the order. Now what I've got is a ClickUp list here of orders, and you can see that one went through and processed. So we've got the header row, which is about the order itself, the order number, the contact email, the totals, all that kind of thing. And then these sub rows are the actual items purchased, and they have the quantity, the unit price, etc. Okay, so this one here is for the header row, and it has various information from the extraction, right? We've got shipping address, output, street address, total retail, reference, etc., etc. And then here we are iterating through the individual items, and we'll create those items in ClickUp as well as the sub rows. Here we have the quantity, we'll have the line count and things as well. I think this is the one I've set up. But you can see here I've got two different routes. We don't switch between these. You choose one or the other to set up. This one here, very straightforward. We say whatever the customer wrote down, that's what we put in our system. Right? We just trust. In some cases that will work, especially if you're doing boutique things or like requests from your customers, that's perfect. However, if you're a business selling set products, you really, like in your system, you're going to need to have which of our products are they wanting to purchase, right? It needs to match our catalog. So if they write things in their purchase order that are incorrectly spelt, the wrong words, doesn't really make sense, like they don't actually match our catalog, we need to somehow fix that. And we do that by fuzzy matching. So we've got our fuzzy matching section here. So basically we'll fuzzy match it to the right thing, and then we'll input the correct thing into our order management system. So here's the correct name, and then all of our unit price, discount, line total, quantity, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so let's have a look at fuzzy matching. AI allows us to do fuzzy matching in a way better way. This is retrieval augmentation. You might have heard of RAG models, RAG, that's retrieval augmented generation. This is not generation, so it's just retrieval augmentation. And the way we do that is we use a technology called embeddings. And basically an embedding takes some text and turns it into a whole bunch of numbers. So what I've done beforehand is I had all my products on a spreadsheet or wherever you have them. Each one, I created an embedding using AI, and then I put that into a vector database. Here I'm using Pinecone. So that all exists. Now for this particular order, what we did is we took the name that they put in. In the live version, I wouldn't just use the name. I'd use the name, the category, the price, like as much information as possible to try and match this. And we turned that into an embedding. And you can see an embedding here is this huge list of numbers. This is a numerical way of identifying the meaning of those words, which is crazy. Then we give that to the actual vector database, and we say, give us the 10 closest matches, right? And so it outputs the 10 closest matches. The first one is very close, and it's a 0.96% match. The second one is not close at all. It's only a 0.39% match, right? So that's how it works. Then we filter out all the ones that are bad matches. So anything below a 0.56, that's just a number that I tested. And then we aggregate those names together. We give them to an AI and say, hey, basically here's the thing that the customer ordered, and here's all the possible things they could have meant. Which one is correct, right? So your job is to make a common sense judgment on which books customers are intending to purchase. Blah, blah, blah. Output it in this format. If it's an error, this format. Here are the books that are possible matches. Here's what the store sent us. What are the details of the one they mean, right? And so it outputs the correct name. So here's result, this one. And again, I've given it space to do reasoning because otherwise it'll put reasoning in the item name. If we can see, let's have a look. So this is operation 1, and that was Nova and the Cloud Bridge. And the input was Nova and the Sky Bridge. Okay, so the customer got one word wrong there, and the automation has fixed it. Yeah. Okay, that's fuzzy matching. Then we've got two more routes here. This last one, basically this is a best practice. So because we are setting variables and then getting them on a different route, and we're doing that within a context where we could be processing multiple emails at once, we don't want information from one email bleeding into the next, right? That can happen when we set variables and then they're still there around for the next email. So after each email, we want to clear all of our variables, right? Just a general best practice. Okay, and then our last route here, this is our customer follow-up route. So here we have a filter. We say, if this information is missing, this information is really important to us. If any of this is missing, or right now it's got it happening every time, go through the items, put them into a different, okay, hold on. If any information is missing, email the customer, right? These bits here in the middle, this is just because I want to get some information in a very specific format to pre-fill my form, right? This is some JSON format to go into my form. On my email, I say, thanks for your order. We just need a few more pieces of information from you, right? Could you please fill out this form with the remaining fields so we can process your order? And I'm using a jot form there, and I'm pre-filling it with all the information from the PO they sent in, so they don't have to refill anything in twice, right? If you ask customers to repeat information a second time, they're not going to do it. We hate that. All people hate that. And so the easier we make it for the customer, the more likely they are to do it, and the more likely that is to actually save us time by running this automation. Okay, so that has run, that has sent an email. Let's go have a look at that. Okay, so I think it's this one here. Yep, and so here, what we just saw there in the order form. Okay, and it's filled in all that information. It actually hasn't filled in the order lines this time. Luckily, something's gone wrong there. Let's have a look at the, actually, let's process another one. Where am I? Here. So we'll have a look at that. But otherwise, that is actually the whole automation. We're a few minutes early, which is wonderful. We're going to get time for questions. A couple of other things I was supposed to talk about was, okay, what does a good PDF and bad PDF look like? This is a good PDF. It's been obviously generated by a computer. Everything's nice and square. This is readable, right? And an AI can read this very easily. Every piece of information has a label. Got a nice table, super easy. This is a bad PDF, right? I've made this myself. I've tried to make it as bad as I can. You actually can get it worse than this, but this is what I could do at the time I had available. So you can see it's on a lean. That's not great. Like it's just dotty. Like my scanner, it's just not that good. It's a cheap scanner. There's like half a line missing here. We've got some text up in the top that's handwritten. We actually don't have any information without a label. Like even that purchase order number, it's pretty obvious what that is. I guess it doesn't say order number, but like everything else is well labeled. So it's actually not that terrible. If I were to put this through automation, I would kind of guess that we might get an 80% accuracy. You definitely can get lower than that. Okay, one last thing before I hand back over. So I've just processed that, and okay, here we go. Source is not valid XML. I know exactly why this is, and the reason is that it's put some extra text outside. Is that true? No, okay. So this is, you get used to these things, and each time we have an error, we put in an error handler. The other thing that's really common, no, I'm actually not seeing that either. Okay, so in the case that you have an issue like this, what we do is we copy that out, and then we go find an XML validator. Can I jump out of here? XML validator, or if you're in a JSON, find a JSON validator, and just find out what's wrong. Okay, the and symbol, right? And then we go back into our prompt and say, okay, please don't use and symbols, et cetera, and we filter that out. All right, Michael, I'll hand back over to you.
Justin, that was unbelievable. The amount of rigor that this kind of automation gives any business, I think it's a step change, it's a massive step change for everyone. And that was actually quite impressive to watch, just all the different steps and how much guardrails are in place to kind of make sure we get to as close to 100% as possible. So yeah, thank you very much. And I even appreciate, to be honest, that live troubleshooting you just did there. That's a tip for me as well with the XML validator. So yeah, that's really good to see. Thank you very much. Uh, so you guys have been dropping questions in. We
Yes.
have a few here. But Justin, you actually preempted one of the questions I was going to ask, which is what's the weirdest or most chaotic order email you've seen? You must have seen a few in your time.
Yeah, and there's many different types. So one you saw was a bad PDF. Another one that I saw was just today actually. It was, and it makes total sense. Someone's copy and pasted in the list of products they usually buy, and then like done like five spaces, and then put in a number, and that should be the quantity. And so all you've got like is a list of products. Some of them have a number beside them, some of them don't. And there's no like label as to whether it's a quantity or what. It's just figure this out. And humans can do it. And the automation actually nailed it, with the exception of it tried to put through the ones with no number beside them, right? Because they were genuinely on the order, but there was no quantity. So I had to adjust it to say, look, if they say they want a book, but they don't tell us how many, probably they don't actually want it. So
Got
things
it.
like that.
Yeah, just to make your life a little bit harder, why don't we handwrite it? But yeah, thank you very much. So we've got a few questions here to get through, actually, some interesting questions. So the first one we have is how much is the cost for this workflow? And that's from Anne.
Yeah, really good question. I've hit that error 3 times now. I'm annoyed about that. Anyway, deal with it afterwards. So here we're getting about 25, 82. Okay. So when it ran at this time, it had 82. Okay, they had like 11 books in this case, or 11 products. As a general rule of thumb, 1,000 operations on Make is $1. So this is 82. So that's 8 cents. Okay, so we've got 8 cents from Make. You also have to take into account the tokens. Tokens are so cheap these days. I would expect this to cost 5 to 10 cents. On the live version, I actually have done the precise calculations. Generally speaking, they wanted it to cost more and be more accurate. And so we went from like 20 cents per order processed up to like 50 to $1 per order processed, compared to paying for human time, which was much more expensive.
Got it.
So hopefully that answers that.
Excellent. We have another question. It's a bit more detail here. So, as an early stage startup, I'm just interested in using Make. Obviously, worried about cost. As an example, we want to build something we'd probably have to hire a dev for. There's a steep learning curve, it seems like, for them. They've run out of free credits, and they were wondering if they've not used Make operations before, how they can get started. Well, you are in luck today, Christine, because what we have on screen is a QR code that you could scan and it will give you access to a free 1 month usage of our Pro plan. So if you scan this code, you can have a go at Make, have a tinker, see what solutions you can find in it, and yeah, just have a go playing around with Make. But if you scan this QR code, and this goes for everyone, you should get access to the 1 month plan. So yeah, there you go, Christine.
I don't know for sure if it'll work if they're already signed up on Make, but if you run into that issue, Christine, just create a new Make account, and you can just copy and paste your scenarios over. It's not a big deal. Um, Also, as a general answer to that, um, Make's core plan, and okay, I'm somewhat associated with Make here, but I'll speak as honestly as I can. Make's core plan is about $10 per month. There's absolutely no reason why you should not be on that. If you have any money at all, it's insane value. If you're running out of operations at 10,000 operations and you're new, yeah, look, just jump on YouTube or like do some. You can make automations much more efficient. Most of my automations, I have whole businesses running on 10,000 operations, and I know Make would not like me saying that because that's how they make money, but you can do a hell of a lot. Yeah, get the core plan, get down to 10,000 operations, and then just improve your efficiency a little bit, and you should be able to do everything you need to, at least as a very small business.
Thank you, Justin. I'll pretend I didn't hear all of that. I think hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, please feel free to get started today. Next question. How do you use different company emails for different workflows? How secure is it?
Yeah. So what I was doing there is just using aliases. So basically in Gmail, like admin, I've just got multiple email addresses coming to mind. It's a super standard feature, like a catch-all email, something people are sometimes familiar with. Um, yeah, it's very secure. It's not part of Make It All. It's just a generic email thing that you can do. But Google like email aliases, and you'll find out about it.
Excellent. Hope that answers your question, Anne. Yuri, we have a question about how to get the blueprints for the scenario. And Justin, almost by magic, has offered the blueprints. So if you follow the URL at the bottom of the page just there, you should get access to some bonus freebies, which I mentioned at the start. You'll get access to the blueprints, won't you, Justin?
Yes, yeah, yeah. The blueprints, and there's one other thing on there as well.
Excellent. Another question from Yuri. Why do you choose XML and not JSON?
Yeah, really good question. Because JSON works fantastically with Make. You don't have to do that parsing step. The reason is a little birdie told me, word on the wind, that Claude works really well with XML and OpenAI works really well with JSON. I haven't been able to test or validate that, but it came from a source that I trusted. And so, yeah, I use XML for Claude specifically. And at the time when we built this automation, Claude was the best for this kind of extraction. That was like a few months ago. Things change very fast. I wouldn't bet my life on it being true anymore. All the different AIs are advancing really quickly. Um, but yeah, that was the reasons why in the beginning.
Perfect, perfect. We have a question here about operations. How many operations are you using per mail received per purchase order, essentially?
Yeah, so in this particular example we just looked at, we used 25 if it was a simple one and 82 if it was a more complex one. I'm just trying to think about the live scenario. I think there are cases where we're using up to like 160, and that doesn't bother us at all. But yeah, that might give you a bit of an idea.
Similar question from Natty, which is, what's the average cost per purchase order received, considering tools and make operations expenditure? And how does this compare to the saving benefit you mentioned at the beginning?
Yeah. So from memory, we calculated the per order price at around 50 cents, I think, the last time I did it. You could go cheaper than that. They basically said, look, burn operations, like just burn as many operations as you can to make this as accurate as possible. I originally had it down near 20 cents per order. In terms of time saving, okay, so we said 9,000 hours, which is 4.5 full-time people. If we assume a regular salary of what's normal, like 60,000, so then times four is 270,000 per year, and it's costing them less than 1,000 per year. Must be. Yeah, the savings are massive. I hopefully that answers the question well enough.
And as you said from the start, size of the business doesn't seem to be a limiting factor at all. Basically, depending on your workforce, obviously it has greater benefit for larger operations, more complexity, but you can see benefit regardless of the size of your business.
Yeah, like the percentage increase will be the same regardless. But obviously, if you're spending $1 million per year on staff or on things you can automate, you're going to see more savings than if you're a small business spending less right now
Exactly.
in terms of numbers.
Next question. It'd be interesting to understand the pass concept a bit more. Is that something you could elaborate on quickly or maybe take offline potentially?
Yeah, I don't actually know what that means, unfortunately. Fab, if you can like add another question, maybe we can get to that. Parse, or maybe the word parse. Okay, so parse just means read, honestly. It's a really fancy word for read. So this whole thing is like parsing PDFs, but specifically these parse XML, it just means like read XML. We put XML in here, and it outputs like make understandable data. Yeah, it basically means read.
Yeah. Read or make sense of is how I've thought about it in the past. So yeah, passing
Yeah,
a PDF
perfect.
basically just to make sense of it. Thank you for that, Fab. Marcus, how do you change the names of the modules so that you can better
Oh,
recognize what they do?
yeah, great question. Let's jump into the diagram. You can just right click on them, basically. But it's a really good idea. It's really nice for remembering how it all works. So if you right click and rename, yeah, simple as that.
Right, so we're very quickly running on time, so I'm going to pick a few more questions. Let's see here. Let's see. How do you choose between Anthropic and OpenAI? I knew there'd be an LLM based question somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly I can't answer that question. I'm more of an automation expert than I am an AI expert. I know some guys who are really deeply into it, like they read every single, like piece of news about it. Mostly I listen to them. But my general sense is that it doesn't matter. Like they're so neck and neck right now. Maybe in the future they're going to divert, but there's a few differences. Like Perplexity does one specific thing, but between like Anthropic Claude and OpenAI and maybe even Gemini now and Microsoft's one, like OpenAI, was first to market. A lot of people trust that, and I think it's got really good. It works. It's nicer to use OpenAI with Make than it is to use Claude. Like that
Got
might be enough of a thing to sway you, but they're pretty neck and neck.
got it, got it. Yeah, the rest are fairly LLM based questions, but I will save one of Yuri's for last, or maybe a couple more. Could you elaborate more about fuzzy matching and what is pine cone?
Yeah. Okay. So I went over that really quickly because it is a really big topic. Fuzzy matching is just the process of matching two things which are not exactly the same, right? So maybe if you try and write in the name of a product, but you misspell it or you write it in the wrong order or something, it's not an exact match, but it's close, right? It's matching things that are close. Pinecone is a vector database. Let me go to full screen here. This is what it looks like, Pinecone. It's just a database. So I've got all these different products. We've got some text, and it holds those embeddings. Um, so if you want to use embeddings, OpenAI has a native one, but it's not very good. Pinecone's great. It's free up to a fairly high level of use. Um, yeah, that might be as much as I can answer that without going really into the details.
Excellent. I will save selfishly my question for last. And what's the fastest time to value you've seen from this kind of setup in your experience?
Yeah, so like if you were doing this yourself from scratch and you're not that familiar with Make, I'd say allow at least 6 months. The very first time I built a really significant large automation as a pretty experienced person, I'd spend about a month on it, testing all the different pieces and getting it right. Within my focus areas, which is auto processing and the connecting task task management to accounting, like I've got all the templates now. So the time to value now is usually less than a week, right? It's like 4 to 6 hours of actual work, plus however many Zoom calls we need to understand the business and get the spreadsheet of the products.
Wow. So potentially a week's worth of work to save you, what, 750 hours? That's yeah, that maths looks pretty good in my book.
It is
So
pretty good.
we've come to the end of the session. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. This was a really lively session, and yeah, hopefully you've taken a lot from this. By all means, feel free to scan the QR code to make sure you get access to the free operations. And please, please, please make sure to take advantage of Justin's kindness with his URL at the bottom there, sharing the operations. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to see you again very soon in our next session. Thank you, guys.